Hello, you guys. Hi, and welcome. Welcome back to 90 Days Through the Word. My name is Sonia McCullough Lockridge, and I joy to come to you in this fashion. And today is day 36 of 90 Days Through the Word. Now, we had quite a bit of reading today. By my calculations, it was around 17 chapters. I think that's the most that we have had this entire time of reading. But in that we read that much, we completed the book of Nehemiah, we completed the book of Esther, and we started reading in the book of Job. This is going pretty fast. Soon and very soon we will be at the halfway point, and at that point we will just have 45 more days left of 90 days through the Word. Now, today we notice at the end of the book of end of the book of Nehemiah that Nehemiah was angry and he threw Tobiah out of the chamber and cleansed it and brought the vessels back into the house. Some more stuff happened as well, but that is something significant that happened in the end of the book of Nehemiah. Now, many of us know the story of Esther and how Esther replaced Queen Vashti as she did not respond properly to the king. So many of us know this story and the players. There's Queen Esther, there's Queen Vashti, there's Mordecai, there's Haman, and how Haman ended up in the gallows in death when it was his intention for Mordecai to be hung. And therefore, the Jews are saved, and Esther is the one who spoke up to save her people by not being silent in the time of the need of her folks. So that's kind of the story of Esther. That's some of the highlights. Many of us know this story and are very familiar with this story, but of course, if we were to study the story, we would learn much more. There's a lot entailed. Actually, Mordecai is actually Esther's uncle, and she was an orphan because both of her parents died. So there's a lot in this story to mention, but these are some of the highlights. So Esther approaches the king without being summoned. This could potentially cause death for her, but because of her courage, it did not. And this approach is when she had her ask of the king. And so much is revealed in this story. It is one of the favorite stories of the Bible. And of course, toward the end of the book of Esther, the Feast of Purim is established, and that feast is still greatly in play today. Now, we move on to the book of Job, and many of us also know this story in regards to Job and how the Satan approached the Lord in regards to Job. And, Satan says to the Lord, of course, Job is a good and upright, blameless man because he's under your protection. And the Lord is confident in Job's faithfulness, and he removes his protection. He removes his protection, but not all of his protection. And he allows Satan to toy with Job for an extended period of time. Now, in the first 7 chapters of that, we hear Job suffering in poetry form, and that poetry is very painful, but we recognize that it's poetry in the book of Job because it's set in a poetry fashion. So that is one thing about the ESV version of the text, is when it's poetry, the ESV sets the text as poetry. One thing we might note is that the book of Job, if we were reading chronologically, and the book of Job would fall right after the book of Genesis. So it would be Genesis, then Job, then Exodus, Deuteronomy, and so on and so forth. So if we were reading chronologically, and that kind of helps us when we're not reading chronologically to place the story of Job in proper perspective. So this story of Job happened before Exodus. Okay, so Job, the suffering, and all of that happened prior to the story of Exodus in chronological order. So that is kind of all of I have for us today. That's a lot. It was a lot of reading. Tomorrow our reading finds us still in the book of Job, and we'll be reading tomorrow from Job 8:1 through Job 24:25. So we don't have nearly as much reading tomorrow, but quite a bit. And I love the book of Job because I love the display and demonstration of this conversation that this particular individual has with the Lord. I think that is amazing that we get to hear, and we get to dissect, and we get to read this personal conversation that someone who is suffering greatly has with the Lord. And then, of course, we get to see the outcome when Job's particular family that he lost is not replaced, but he does regain a new family and new possessions. So that is all I have for us today. I thank you, and I look forward to tomorrow, which will be day 37 of 90 days through the Word. And I joy to come to you in this fashion, and I really enjoy reading our text today. Although it was a bit much, I just sat down and forced myself to read the entirety of it, knowing full well that I may not be retaining every bit and every portion, but the fact is that I've been introduced to it and I've seen it. So when I study later, I'll have, in all likelihood, the Holy Spirit will have more of an opportunity to remind me of that which it has taught me, since I've already consumed it. So this is Sonia signing out. Have a blessed day in the Lord. And I feel better. I feel so much better that I even did my hair. Thank you, and have a blessed day in the Lord.